welcome. This practice is going to consist of poses lying on your back, poses lying on your belly, and sitting poses. You may want a yoga block, a yoga strap, and a blanket. If you don't have a blanket, a pillow would probably work really well for this practice instead of a blanket. A strap, anything, bathrobe, ties, almost anything, even like hoodies that aren't too stretchy. Almost anything can work as a strap. Blocks are a little bit harder. You can use a stack of books sometimes. We are going to be moving it in and out a bit. I've seen someone tape books together. If you have a low stable container that you can flip upside down, like a low bucket or something about this size that you can flip upside down, that can work. But really for this practice, you really might want an actual yoga block, just so you know. Okay. I am going to Om here and sitting to open the practice, and then we're going to come to lying on our backs. So if you just want to center for a moment, come into sitting pose, sit up nice and tall. The pillow or the blanket, you actually might want underneath you to tilt the hips a little bit forward if your hips tend to tuck under. And then you can bring the hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back. Soften or close the eyes. Just feeling the breath flow through you here. Taking a long, deep, full breath in through the nose. And a long, full, deep breath out through the nose. And just settling into the fullness of the breath a bit. And then we will Om. So take a full, deep breath in. Exhaling out completely. Inhale again. Take a deep, full breath in. And then exhale, releasing your hands. Softly open your eyes. And we'll go ahead and make our way to our backs. So the pillow blanket, you could have someplace where you can grab it easily on the side. The same with the block and the strap. So you want all three someplace where you could grab them easily on your back. And then go ahead and come onto your back. With your knees bent, soles of the feet on the ground. And you just open your feet as wide apart as a mat here and just do some gentle windshield wipers, lowering the knees to the right side with your feet nice and wide apart. Inhale up to center and exhale the knees to the left side. Just moving side to side a bit here with the flow of your breath. And then coming back into center here. You can have your feet about hip distance apart, knees either pointing towards the sky, or you can have the feet a little bit wider apart and knees gently falling in towards each other. The right hand can come to your low ribs, the left hand to your heart. Soften or close your eyes. We're going to do more centering here and come to the flow of the breath here. So just feeling the natural curves of the spine here. The hips nice and heavy. The low ribs lifting, or the low back, not the low ribs, the low back lifting up a little bit, but at the same time the low ribs settling down towards the spine. The shoulders nice and heavy. The neck lifts up a little bit. And with your chin in neutral, the back of the head nice and heavy. And again, just breathing here, letting your breath become full and deep, and balancing out the inhales and the exhales as you breathe. And letting yourself settle. So with every exhale, feel the hips, the shoulders, and the back of the head melting into the support of the earth. And with every inhale, just feel expansion from inside out. Feel the torso expanding, the spine lengthening, and just coming into a fullness of yourself. Breathe. Stay connected to the flow of the breath. You can gently let the eyes open, bringing the arms along the sides. The palms can just be face up. Opening your feet now, hip distance apart, knees facing towards the ceiling. And from here, go ahead and just straighten the left leg along the ground. Left knee and toe points up to the sky. Press down to the left heel. Press down to the entire left leg if it works for you, and feel both hips heavy. Now, if you have a knee issue and straightening the left leg all the way doesn't work for you, then go ahead and bend your knee and root down through the heel and both hips, breathing here. And then exhale, go ahead and bend that left knee back in and straightening the right leg. Right knee and toe points up to the sky. Press down through the entire right leg from the heels to your hips, and also making sure you're not leaning too much to the right hip. Left hip presses down as much as the right hip here as you breathe. If you need to bend the knee, consciously bend the knee, rooting down through the right heel and both hips. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then go ahead and bend that right knee. Grabbing that nearby block. Block the long way between the hands and maybe not gripping the block. Maybe just pressing the palms into the block to hold it. Stretch your hands up to the ceiling, palms face in here. Lining the nice curves of the spine, hips, shoulders, and back of the head heavy. And then inhale, go ahead and lift the shoulder blades off the back, arm bones out of the shoulder socket. Exhale, press the shoulder blades down onto the ground, shoulder blades into the back, arm bones into the shoulder socket. Inhale with shoulder blades off the back, arm bones out of the shoulder socket. Exhale, shoulder blades on the back, arm bones into the shoulder socket. Inhale, shoulder blades off the back, arm bones out of the shoulder socket. Exhale, shoulder blades on the back, arm bones into the shoulder socket. With your next inhale, stretch your arms up overhead, back for the wall behind you. Exhale, arms back up to the ceiling. The whole time now the shoulders are staying rooted down. Inhale, stretch the arms up overhead. Exhale, arms back towards the ceiling. Inhale, arms stretch up overhead, holding here, feeling the low ribs, the core engaging as you stretch the arms back for the wall behind you. Then exhale, arms back towards the ceiling. Go ahead and place the block over to the side where you can grab it easily. And from here, go ahead and lift your right leg up and cross the right ankle over the left knee, gently pressing the right thigh away from you. You can bring the hand to the right thigh and do that. Notice your right ankle. Make sure your ankle isn't twisting. The foot isn't turning towards the face. Stretch the inner edge of the ankle as you press the right thigh away from you. And feel both hips, again, nice and even. So try not to shift the weight into one hip or the other hip too much here. Breathe. And then exhale, go ahead and cross the right leg. And cross the left ankle over the right knee, pressing the left thigh away. The left hand can come to the thigh, gently pressing the thigh away. Evening out the hips and feeling the breath flow through you here. Nice, full, deep breaths. Exhale, go ahead and release. You might want to grab the strap for the next pose. I often like to double up my strap for just a better grip experience. And then from here, you're going to lift the right leg up. And you can take the strap and grab the back of the leg, or you can take your hands and grab the back of the leg. Holding onto the belly of the thigh, press the leg out into your hands and straightening that right leg however much works for you. And again, trying to feel the hips nice and even here. Try not to let the back round, not letting the tailbone tuck under too much here as you press the thigh away from you. And you can always, if you're using a strap, give yourself more strap or less strap. Breathe. Nice, full, deep breath. Rooting both hips into the earth. And then exhale, go ahead and release. And second side, lifting the left leg up. Holding onto the belly of the left thigh. Pressing the leg out into the strap. And then straightening the leg however much works for you. Or again, you can use the hands to hold onto the back of the thigh. Try to keep the shoulder blades on the back, relaxing the shoulders towards the ground, back of the head pressing down with your chin in neutral. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then go ahead and release. Come back to the first side, grabbing the back of the thigh with your hands or the strap. And then from here, if you're using the strap or the hands, you might want to slide your hands up the back of the knee.
and then pulling your right knee in towards your right armpit. And again, noticing when you do this, the weight probably shifted more in the right hip. Your right hip probably hitched a little bit. I'm not going to say keep your hips perfectly level, although that's a fun practice to do sometimes and has some advantages. I'm just saying try to move your hips back into neutral here. So if you feel that right hip lifting way up higher than the left, try to push that right outer hip away a little bit. And if you feel all the weight in the right hip, try to bring some of the weight back to the left hip. Nice full deep breaths. And then go ahead and release. 10 seconds side, lifting the left leg up, grabbing the back of the leg with the hands or the strap, maybe closer to the knee joint this time, and then pulling the left knee towards the left armpit. Notice what happens to your hips here, and then try to move the hips back a little bit more into equilibrium, trying to level out the right and the left hip, trying to even out the weight between both sides, feeling the breath flow through here. And then exhale and go ahead and release, putting the strap someplace where you could easily grab it if you're using that right now. Straighten both legs along the ground, knees and toes pointing up to the sky. Press down through both legs, press down through both hips, press down through the shoulders, and press down through the back of the head with your chin in neutral. Maybe for a moment, let the rib cage lift up. That will help you to root down the legs. But also remember, if you need a little bend in the knees, press down through your hips and the heels with the knees bent. But again, maybe lift the ribs up for a moment, rooting down the legs a little bit more, and then go ahead without flattening out the low back, without tucking your hips under. Just let the low ribs settle back towards the earth. Breathe. Grab the nearby block. Stretch your arms up to the ceiling, palms face in, root the shoulders down, and then stretch the arms up overhead here. From the hips rooting down, stretch the feet towards away from you, from the hips, and stretch your arms up overhead. Full body stretch, low ribs really hugging in, core engaging to do this. And exhale, go ahead, release, put the block over to the side, hug the knees into the chest. As you're ready, coming into a ball and just gently rocking from side to side here. Coming back into center, lower the soles of the feet to the ground. The soles of the feet on the ground, grab the block again. This time lift your hips up just a little bit and the block the lowest height, slide underneath your hips. Some people like the block more underneath the tailbone. Some people like the block a little bit higher on the hips. But you do want the block underneath the hips and not so much the low back. And then once you're here, you can bring the arms by the sides into an airplane position, palms face up. Wiggle the shoulders underneath you a little bit here. Chin in neutral, press down through the shoulders and the back of the head and feel a little bit of a lift through the chest. Breathe. And again, try not to feel your hips tucking under, nor try not to feel the hips tilting back too much. But the hips just a little bit tilted back is a neutral position for the hips. When you feel ready, if it feels okay for you, go ahead and start to slide the right leg straighter. And have a little point for today through the right foot if that feels okay for you. You don't have to point so strongly that the toes are on the ground, but moving in towards a point, knees and toes facing up to the sky. Breathing here, stretching that right leg away from you. But again, not so much that the hips start to twist, keeping your hips pretty even on the block. Breathe. And then go ahead and bend the right leg and straighten the left leg. Nice full deep breath, keeping the hips relatively even. As you just feel the front of the body expanding out on that left side a little bit. And then go ahead and bend the left knee. Breathing here in a low bridge pose on a block, supported bridge. And then go ahead and take the block out from underneath you. Lower the hips to the ground. Block someplace where you could easily grab it. Hands to the tops of the thighs. Press the thighs away from you, gently swaying the hips from side to side here. And then coming back to center here and hug the knees back into the chest, coming back into a ball, gently rocking from side to side here. From here, we're going to roll all the way over onto our bellies. So you can just roll and do a flip all the way onto your belly, making a pillow for the head with the hands. And then from here, rocking the hips a little bit side to side. Coming back into center with the hips. In center with the hips, bring the hands to either side of the chest, underneath the biceps or the elbows. Press down to the hips with your kneecaps facing down. Press down to the feet, feel the legs stretching back to the wall behind you. And keeping the low ribs on the ground, just lifting up a little bit through the shoulders and the chest. Breathing here, low cobra. Pressing down through the hands, stretching the chest forward through the shoulders, feel the shoulders on the back. And then from here, keeping the kneecaps facing the ground, inhale the left leg, lift that up just an inch or two. Stretch that leg back for the wall behind you, both hips nice and heavy, and then lower that leg down. And then inhale the right leg lifts, stretch that leg back for the wall behind you, and then lower that leg down. Now try to even out your hips if your hips are uneven. Keep rooting down through the hips. Inhale the left leg lifts up just as high as works for you with the knee and the toe facing the ground, left hip on the ground. Exhale and release. Inhale, the right leg lifts up. Exhale and release. Inhale, left leg lifts. Exhale, release. Inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, release. Inhale, both legs lift, knees facing the ground, legs hugging in towards each other, maybe all the way together, maybe not. And then keep stretching back through the legs and lower both feet down to the ground, rooting the hips down enough that you can do that. With your next exhale, go ahead, release. Bring the head to the hands, relax the muscles, gently rock the hips from side to side here. And then coming back into center with your hips, prop yourself up on your elbows, elbows underneath the shoulders. Pressing down through the forearms, act like you're going to pull the forearms back, feel the shoulders on the back, hips rooting down, chest pulls forward through the shoulders, toes on the ground, but extending back actively through the legs, breathing in Sphinx pose. And then as you're ready, cross the right arm over in front of you, rolling all the way over to the right side, bend the left knee, maybe grab that foot, but if you can't grab it, no worries. Well, and also you have a strap, so if you can't grab the foot, you might want to grab the strap, make a loop into it, and then you can stretch the left knee back for the wall behind you. Breathing here. Nice full deep breaths. With every exhale, maybe relax that left knee a little bit closer to the right knee. And then go ahead and coming back through center, crossing the left arm over in front of you, rolling over onto the left side, bend the right knee, maybe grabbing that ankle. Stretch the right knee back for the wall behind you, breathing here, nice full deep breath. And again, with every exhale, maybe letting that right knee come a little bit closer to the left. And then exhale, go ahead and release and make your way back into a child's pose. Breathe. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. With your next inhale, come up to all fours. Grab your block, maybe even at the highest height, depending on how things feel for you. Open your feet a little bit apart, knees a bit closer together, but maybe not all the way touching. And then come and sit on the block here. Virasana, hero's pose on a block. Breathe. Nice, full, deep breaths. Okay. When you're ready, go ahead and come off that block. Take both feet over to your left side, if this works for you. Lifting the low back out of the hips and twisting to the right. If this doesn't feel good for your knees, you can, at this point, take a blanket, slide it under the right butt cheek to give yourself a little bit more room and see if that helps. But you can also leave this out. In fact, you can leave anything out. Then go ahead and unwind. And second side. So taking both feet over to the right side, lifting the low back out of the left hip, and then turning to the left. Breathe. Inhale, unwind to center. Both legs forward out in front of you, knees and toes pointing up to the sky, hands back behind you, press down through the legs, press down through the hips, lift up to the low back, open through the chest, open through the throat, staff dandasana variation. Notice your hips are not tucked under and the low back is lifting up out of the hips here. Keep that, come up to your fingertips and walk your hands forward. Now, if it's hard for you to not tuck your hips under and lift the low back out of the hips with the hands by the hips. And you might have to be up on fingertips if your arms are shorter. If your arms are longer, you can bring the palms down. This might cause you to slide the shoulders away from the ears, which isn't bad for a moment. But again, you might need to play with some actions and some things. Breathing in Tadasana. And then exhale and go ahead and release. If your hips feel like they're trying to tuck under here, you might want to grab something, the pillow or the blanket, to sit on for the next pose. And for the next pose, if it works for you, you're going to come into a cross-legged position with the left leg in front of the right. Okay. Inhale and sit up nice and tall here, untucking the tailbone, lifting the low back out of the hips. Exhale, twisting to the left, taking the right arm across the left knee, left hand back behind you. Breathe. And then inhale, unwind. From this Sukhasana, easy cross-legged position, we're going to come into Siddhasana. So you're going to open, or a variation of Siddhasana. This is really a prep. You're going to open the feet wider apart and try to keep your knees on the ground, extending out through your knees as you sit up nice and tall here. If this is challenging for you, you can bring your hands to your knees to help to pull the low back up out of the hips and to help keep your tailbone untucked. And a fuller Siddhasana, or a different version of the pose that's often done, is to take the left ankle foot and to tuck it into the right. Breathing here. And then exhale, go ahead and release. Come into cross-legged position with the right leg crossed in front of the left. Inhale, lift the low back out of the hips. Exhale, twisting to the right, feeling the breath move through you here. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then with your next inhale, unwind, open the feet wide apart, right foot in front of the left, extending out through the knees, trying to lift the low back up out of the hips, hands to the knees. And your knees might be lifted, and that's okay. You're not forcing things down, but you are thinking about the inner thigh spiraling towards the ground. Breathe here. And again, if you want to, you can tuck the right foot inside the left. I actually have a foot thing going on that side, so I'm not going to demonstrate that on that side. Breathe. And then exhale, go ahead and release, coming off the pillow or the blankets. Legs forward out in front of you again, knees and toes up to the sky, hands back behind you. Lifting the low back again up out of the hips here, and then maybe walking your hands forward, still lifting the low back out of the hips. Dandasana again, rooting the legs down, breathe. But again, if you do need to bend the knees too, that is fine. Go ahead, bend your knees and feel your hips and your heels pressing down. Move the hips a little bit forward. Grab on underneath your thighs. Inhale, lengthen the spine out of the hips. Exhale, lean back. Feel free to stay here with a nice extended spine, or you can float the feet up. Feel free to stay here, or if you keep the spine extending, you can straighten the legs. So if your back wants to round, bend your knees instead. And then if you're feeling really stable here, you can release the hands from the legs. Breathe. Go ahead and release. Lower the feet back to the ground, hands to the thighs. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, letting the back round, rolling down, stopping. There's some place where you feel like you can hold, and release the hands here, breathing. And then go ahead and ease your way all the way onto your back. Once you're all the way onto the back, you can hug the knees into the chest, gently rocking from side to side. Since you might be like me on the other end of your mat now, you might have to readjust where your props are so you can grab your props on the back. Come into center here, lower the feet to the ground. Stretch the legs straight along the ground, knees and toes up to the sky, rooting down through the hips, rooting down through the legs. Stretch the arms up overhead, root down through the shoulders and the back of the head. And again, the low ribs do engage, but not so much the back flattens or the hips tuck under. And then you just stretch everything out and long here. Breathe. Nice, full, deep breaths. As you're ready, go ahead, hug the knees into the chest, coming into a ball and gently rocking. And then lowering the soles of the feet to the ground with your knees bent at first. Straighten the left leg along the ground. Left knee and toe points up to the sky. Root down to the left leg. And either using your hand or the strap, Grab the belly of the right thigh with hands or strap. Press that leg out away from you and slowly straightening that leg. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. Shoulders and back of the head, if possible, staying rooted down. But you can also slide a pillow underneath the shoulders or the back of the head if you need more support, if it's hard for you to relax all the way down. Breathe. And then from here, go ahead and slide the strap up a little bit higher. If you're using the strap or the hands, bend your knee. And then keeping the left leg rooted, trying to pull the right knee towards the right armpit here. And again, your hips probably went out of center. So as much as comfortable, try to bring your hips back into a more centered state. Breathing here. And then exhale, go ahead and release. Second side, straighten the left leg along the ground, left knee and toe points up to the sky. With the strap or your hands, belly of the left thigh, pressing the left leg out into your hands and straightening the left leg. And again, if you need to bend the right knee some, go ahead and bend the knee some, pressing down through the heel, pressing down through both hips. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then sliding the strap or your hands up a little bit higher. Left knee bends, left knee moves in towards left armpit, but as much as possible, keeping your hips nice and centered. Breathing here. Okay, exhale, go ahead and release. You can put the strap to the side, straighten both legs along the ground, knees and toes up to the sky, stretch the arms up overhead, full body stretch here, nice full deep breaths. And then go ahead and grab your block, bend your knees. Again, block could be at the lowest height. Slide the block underneath your hips again here. Palms face up an airplane, wiggle the shoulders underneath you a little bit more. And pressing down through the shoulders and the back of the head with your chin in neutral, feel a lift through the chest. When you're ready, go ahead and straighten out the right leg along the ground. Toes moving towards a point. Breathe. And then go ahead and bend that right knee. Straighten the left leg along the ground. Breathing here. And trying not to let your hips move out of this position. So again, you're trying not to let the hips tilt or tuck more, which they might want to do. Maybe see if you can do both legs straight along the ground. Only if that doesn't bother your low back. If this bothers your low back, instead have your knees bent. And you can always straighten the legs a little bit more without having them all the way straight is also an option. And then bending the knees. Go ahead, take the block out from underneath the hips, lower the hips to the ground. Hands to the tops of the thighs, press the thighs away from you, gently doing small windshield wipers here, knees swaying. And then coming back into center, hugging the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. And flipping your way all the way onto your belly. Making a pillow for the head with the hands, gently rock the hips from side to side here. And then coming back into center with the hips, knees facing down, press down to the hips, press down to the toes, extending back to the legs. Bring the arms straight along the sides, palms can be face up or down. And then when you're ready, inhale, lift up to the shoulders, maybe the chest too. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale, locust, Shalabhasana, floating up. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale and lift, holding the lifted position. If you want to, stretching long through the legs, knees stay facing down, let the feet up. If you want to, you can float up through the arms, breathing here, chest lengthening forward, feet lengthening back. And then go ahead and lower the hands back down and try to root down through the tailbone enough That stretching long through the legs, you can lower the feet down, but still keeping the chest nice and lifted. Breathe. And then exhale, lower all the way back down. Relax, gently rock the hips from side to side. Come back into center with your hips. Prop yourself up on your elbows, elbows underneath the shoulders. Legs relatively close together, and again, root really strongly through the hips. So strongly that when you exhale and bend the right knee, the low back doesn't contract on you. And then inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend the left knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale the right knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale the left knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale the right knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale the left knee. Inhale and straighten. And then with your next exhale, coming back into a child's pose. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then go ahead, inhale to all fours, grabbing the block, maybe this time trying a little bit lower height, medium height. And with the block in between the feet, maybe with a block of this width, hugging the feet into the block, and come up to sitting here, Virasana on a block. Breathe. If it feels okay for you to do so, if everything's feeling fine here, you can situate the block so the hips are just barely resting on the front edge of the block, and then you can walk your hands back behind you and go ahead and let the hips tilt in a direction that you're lengthening the tailbone a bit towards your knees here. Again, not a hard tuck under, but you're also definitely don't want the hips to tilt back really here. Breathe. Inhale, come back up. Make your way off the block, putting the block over to the side. You can take both feet over to the right side here. Inhale, sit up nice and tall. Exhale, twisting to the left. This time, if you want to, instead of keeping the left hand on the ground for a bit more of a challenge, you can lift the left hand up, which means you have to use your core muscles to lift the low back up out of the hip. And then inhale, go ahead, unwind. Take both feet over to the left side. Lift the low back up out of the hips, twisting. And again, if you want to, the back of the right hand to your back, rolling this right shoulder gently on the back, getting a nice shoulder stretch here. Breathe. And then inhale, come up to center. Stretch both legs forward, out in front of you. Knees and toes pointing up to the sky. Hands back behind you. Breathe down through the legs. Lift up through the low back. Open through the chest. Open through the throat. And then go ahead and walk your hands forward in Dandasana. And again, the shoulders might slide away from the ears to lift the low back up out of the hips. Or you might need to come up to fingertips. Breathe. Then when you're ready, hug the right knee into the chest. Sitting up nice and tall here, the left arm can cross over the right leg, the right hand can come back behind you. If you need more room, if your back is rounded or you need room for any reason, just lean back a little bit. If you want to cross the left arm over the right leg, you can. Breathe. And then inhale, unwind, leaning to the left side, right knee joint closed, which means all the way bent. Go ahead and maybe bring the right knee down to the ground here, foot on the ground, foot by your hip. And then maybe see if you can bring the right hip back towards the ground. Don't force that action. If this hurts your knees, don't force it. You want the right knee relatively close to the left. They don't have to be touching. And then from here, again, if you want to, you can lean back a little bit. Nice full deep breaths. And then go ahead and come back up. Lean back to the left side and bring the right leg back forward. Straighten the right leg. Bend the left knee. Hugging onto the left knee, lift the low back up out of the hips. Right knee and toe pointing to the sky. Right arm across, left hand back behind you. Twisting to the left. If you want to cross the left or the right elbow across to the left, you can. Nice full deep breaths. And then inhale, unwind. Lean over to your right side. Left knee stays closed, bent. Maybe lower the left knee to the ground. Left foot by the right hip on the outside. Maybe try to lower that left hip bone back to the ground. And then maybe leaning back a little bit here. Coming to wherever works in your body. Feeling the breath move through you. And then leaning back to the right side. Left knee staying nice and deeply bent. Bring the knee back up. Straighten both legs forward out in front of you. Hands by the hips. Dandasana, staff pose, lifting the low back up out of the hips. Move your hips forward. Grab on underneath your thighs. Lengthen the spine. Lean back. Navasana. Maybe feet float up. Maybe legs straighten. Maybe arms let go. Breathe. And then exhale, lower the feet back down. Inhale, sit up nice and tall. Exhale, rounding the back, coming to a place where you can hold, and maybe letting the feet float up here. Breathe. Ardha Navasana, half a boat. And then make your way all the way down onto your back. Hug the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. And then coming back into center, full body stretch. Knees and toes pointing up to the sky, rooting down to the legs. Stretching the arms up overhead, pressing down to the hips to the shoulders. Maybe let the ribs lift up a little bit so you can root down to the legs even more. And then exhale, bring the low ribs into the equation, engaging your core. And then stretching from your core forward to the feet and out to the hands. Breathe. With your next exhale, bend the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. And then lower the feet to the ground. Grab your nearby strap and loop the strap around the ball of the right foot. And then go ahead and straighten both legs along the ground. And again, rooting down to the back of the legs of the hips here, if that works for you. But also remember, you can press the heels down and bend the knees. So again, modify as needed. And then if it works for you with both legs staying relatively straight, go ahead and pull the right leg in towards you. Then with your right hand, grab the strap and loop the strap around the right hand with the right arm relatively straight, but coming into some place where you can root the shoulder blade down into the ground with the right leg fairly straight. Feel both hips nice and heavy here as you breathe into this hamstring stretch. Nice, full, deep breaths. Okay, trying to keep your hips centered, the left hip heavy on the ground. Open the right leg to the right. And you'll notice as the right leg opens to the right, your weight tries to shift into the right hip. And again, I'm not doing the perfect square thing today, but I do want you to try to bring more weight back into that left hip. Breathe. Some people like to turn the gaze and look over the left shoulder here. And some people like to open the left hand to the left. I like to keep my left hand on my left hip a lot of the times to make sure it's not lifting up too high. And then inhale, bring the right leg back to center. Engage your core, lift your head and shoulders up. From here, we're going to do something you may have not done before. So you're going to externally rotate. You're going to bend the knee. You're going to keep your ankle nice and strong. You're going to grab the strap with both hands. And then your right hand, you're going to give your right hand more strap and take the right hand, maybe not that much more, behind the back of the head. And you're going to kind of make a support for your head with the strap as you do a strong external rotation, a pigeon type pose on the back here. Breathe. This is Panangustasana variation 3. And then go ahead and unwind and slowly extend the right leg straighter. You might have to even things out. And then pressing out through that right foot, lower the right foot down. Slide the left foot into the strap. Slide the right foot out of the strap. Root down through the legs, root down through the hips, and then pulling that left leg up, only as much as feels good for you. With your left arm relatively straight, grab the strap, loop it around the left hand, and then see if you can root the shoulder back down into the ground with the left leg fairly straight. Breathing here. Nice, full, deep breath. And then go ahead and open the left leg to the left. You might let your gaze turn to the right, and again, you're trying to let this right hip stay relatively heavy. So notice if I rock even more weight into the right hip, my left leg lifts up. So that is a contradiction. The left leg, the closer the left leg to the ground, usually the more weight shifts into the left hip, and the more that you weight the right hip down, usually the higher the left leg. I'm having you try to find some place that you feel works for you, that you're trying to root down through the right hip, but still letting the left leg open to the left. And then come back to center here, hugging that left leg in towards you, both hands. Go ahead, lift head and shoulders up, bending the left knee, and taking the left foot across the right. Now I'm staying really firm and strong through my ankle. And then from here, I'm giving my left arm more strap. And what I'm going to do, I have to think about this because it's a toe grab technically. I'm going to give myself more strap and take the left arm back behind me. And I'm not resting my, like for the pose really, you rest your head on your arm. I was resting my head on the strap for the very first side because that feels more comfortable for me, but you can play around with this. Also notice because of this position is too tight for my hip flexors. So again, my right knee is actually bending here, but I'm acting like I'm going to straighten it and trying to keep the knees and toes pointing towards the sky. And then go ahead and unravel, straightening that left leg, squaring the hips, and then pressing the left foot out into the strap. Lower the left leg down to the ground. Putting the strap over to the side. Root down through your legs, root down through the hips, full body stretch. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then go ahead and grab your block. And maybe this time block on the medium height. So again, feel super free to keep it low. But if it works for you, block medium height. Slide that underneath your hips. A little bit higher supported bridge. Wiggle the shoulders underneath you, back of the head, chin in neutral. Press down through the shoulders and the back of the head. Breathe. And then from here, if you want to, you can straighten the right leg along the ground. Nice full deep breath. Again, only straightening the leg as much as works for you. And then go ahead and bending that right knee and straightening the left leg along the ground. Nice full deep complete breaths. And then go ahead and you can bend that leg, and if you want to, you can straighten both legs along the ground. Knees and toes pointing up to the sky, feet moving towards a point. And then go, and also make sure your hips aren't tilting, so the tailbone isn't tilting really far back. That will bother the low back. Go ahead, bring both legs back in. Hips off the block, hips to the ground. Hands to the tops of the thighs, pressing the thighs away from you. Gently swaying the knees from side to side. And then coming back into center, hugging the knees into the chest, coming into ball, rocking from side to side here. And then coming back into center here and making your way all the way onto your belly. Making a pillow for the head with the hands, gently rocking the hips from side to side here. And then coming back into center with the hips, rooting down through the hips, stretching along through the legs. Bring the arms along the sides. Float up through the chest and the shoulders. Stretch along to the legs. Maybe the legs float up. Maybe they stay down. Maybe the arms lift up. Maybe they stay down. Maybe the hands interlace behind the back. Breathe. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. And then exhale, lower all the way back down. Rest your head on the hands. Gently rock the hips from side to side. Coming back to center here, there's a few hand variations for this. So I'm going to do palms down for today, which can be hard on the elbows. You have to press the hands down enough that your elbows do a micro bend. You can also do arms, palms to the side, like fists, and with your thumb down. From here, you wiggle the hands a little bit underneath your thighs, and my chin is resting on the mat. And again, I'm going to actively press down through my palms and get a micro bend in the elbows. Press down through the hips, which are kind of on the hands now, so they're not completely on the ground. They're slightly lifted. Stretch long through the legs. Keep the hips relatively even. With our next inhale, I'm going to lift the right leg up, breathing here. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then exhale, go ahead and release. And inhale and lift the left leg up. And again, trying to keep my hips relatively even. This is another locust variation. And then go ahead and release. And then I'm going to maybe even wiggle the hands closer together, really press down through the palms, and maybe see about lifting both legs up, breathing here. And then exhale, go ahead and release. Come off my hands. Make a head pillow for my head with the hands. Gently rock the hips from side to side. That was also a relatively intense neck stretch. So again, you might notice some things there, or you might have needed to come out of that, and that's fine. When you feel ready, coming back into a child's pose. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then coming into Virasana. Maybe block at lowest height. Maybe even hips in between feet, or blocks, or hips on blanket instead of a block. And again, from here, if you want to, you can wiggle your hips towards the edge of the block. Walk your hands back. Lean back into a Supta Virasana a bit. And then coming back up, coming off of the block, putting it over to the side. Go ahead, let both feet come over to the right side. This time, if you want to, move the left foot further to the left. So the right knee comes all the way down to the ground. And again, only if this works for your knee and hips. You're going to lean into that left hip and maybe bring the left foot to the right hip crease. Sitting up nice and tall here. And then from here, you can go ahead, bring the right arm to the left knee, and take the left arm back behind you. There is sometimes a foot grab in this position. I'm not going to do that today. Although, again, you do have a strap, so if you were really attached to the idea of a foot grab, you could loop a strap around that foot and grab the strap. So I take it back. I guess I did it today with the strap. Go ahead, when you feel ready, unwind. And second side. So both feet over to the left side. But then the right leg comes further forward. Lean more into the right hip. And if you want to, half lotus. And then from here, sitting up nice and tall, left hand to the right knee. Right hand wraps behind you. And if you want to play with a foot grab, you can. You can use a strap if you want to and do it that way. And yes, eventually the left hip would come back down. For me, that's too much for my left knee. So again, doing what works for you. And then go ahead and unwind. Bring the legs forward. Oh, actually, bring the soles of the feet for a moment together. Knees nice and wide apart. Holding on to your ankles. Sit up nice and tall here. Baddha Konasana. You might want to sit on some height here. So notice how high my knees are. I might want to sit on something here to let my hips tilt a little bit more appropriately, to let the knees settle down a bit. Nice full deep breaths here. And then from here, we're going to turn actually, I don't want to turn yet. From here, yes, we are going to turn. We're going to turn and face the long end of the back. And again, if you like height for hips, height for hips. Open the legs nice and wide to the side here. Lift the low back up out of the hips here. I'm just resting my hands on the thighs to do it now. And then from here, I can take the left leg in towards center, bending that knee, hands out in front. Making sure my hips are untucked, lifting the low back out of the hips, sitting up high enough that I can do that, or bending my left knee. And if I can't untuck my hips, then I'm just going to practice that. I'm going to practice sitting up nice and tall, trying to untuck my hips and lengthen the spine. If my hips do untuck and I want to fold forward in between the legs, I can fold forward in between the legs, breathing here. I'm also on the prop, rooting strongly down through my left heel so I don't hyperextend the left knee. So I'm not trying to jam this left knee down because I'm sitting on something. I'm trying to keep an engagement through the back of the leg. Go ahead, walk the hands back in. Left arm inside the left leg. Right arm can reach up to the sky and leaning over towards our right hand inside the left leg. Left hand reaching up to the right leg, leaning up to the sky. And leaning over, reaching for that right foot with the left hand. I'm trying to mirror you, and I kind of flip back to saying my side. Sorry about that. Trying to keep your left hip down. And then inhale back to center and second side. So left leg over to the side, left knee and toe up to the sky. Right leg in the middle, toe pointed. Hands on the floor, right inside the leg. And trying to untuck your tailbone. So this is my tailbone tucked under. Tailbone untucked. Lift the low back out of the hips. And again, if I can't do that, I'm just going to keep playing with that thought. If my hips can tuck, so my crest of the hips come a little bit closer to the thighs as I pull forward. They don't have to lie straight on the thighs, but they're moving in that direction. My tailbone's lengthening back behind me. Then folding forward is a better idea for the low back. It's just a little bit safer. Breathe. There are some exceptions to that rule, though. And then inhale and come back up. There are exceptions to every rule. Right arm inside the right leg, turning belly and chest to the left hand inside the left leg, turning belly and chest to the right. Right arm alongside by the ear, breathing here. Nice full deep breaths. And then inhale, come up to center. Opening both legs nice and wide apart, grabbing on someplace comfortable. Again, untucking the tailbone, lifting low back out of the hips. And again, if you can tilt the hips so the crest of the hip bones come a little bit closer to the thigh, your tailbone can slide back behind you. Then you might want to fold forward. And you can hold on to the legs or you can walk your hands in between the legs. I sometimes also like to do block in between things or to fold forward with block. It just gives me more space and lets my back have more room. Breathe. And then inhale, come back up. Go ahead, bend the knees, bring the feet towards each other. And then from here, we're going to make our way onto our backs again. So from here, you can go ahead and come back onto your mat. Make sure props are someplace where you can grab them comfortably on your back. Inhale, lengthen, sit up nice and tall. Lean back, Navasana. Maybe from Navasana straight into Ardha Navasana. And then lower onto your back. Extending the arms up overhead, extending the legs along the ground, knees and toes pointing up to the sky, legs active, full body stretch. And then hugging the knees into the chest, coming into a ball. Gently rocking. Feel free to use a strap for what we're going to do next. We're going to go ahead and lower the feet to the ground. Straighten the right leg along the ground, right knee and toe up to the sky. Hug the left knee in towards the left armpit for a moment here. And then open the left arm to the left, right hand across the left leg, and lifting your left hip up and letting yourself twist to the right. You are trying to keep, if possible, the left shoulder down, though. Breathing here. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then inhale, go ahead, unwind. And second side. So go ahead, bend the right knee, straighten the left leg, left knee and toe point up to the sky, root down through the left leg. Hug the right knee in towards the right armpit, breathing here. Open the right arm to the right, cross the left arm across the right knee, and the right shoulder stays down, but the hip might lift up as you twist the hips to the left, breathing here. I like a lot of times to press my leg, my right leg in this case, up into my left hand. And then inhale, go ahead, unwind. Hug the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. Coming back into center here, soles of the feet on the ground. Grab the block and sliding the block underneath your hips. You can do medium height again if you were doing medium height before. Arms in airplane position, shoulders on the back. You can straighten the right leg along the ground as ever much works for you. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then go ahead and bending that right knee, straightening the left leg. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then go ahead and bend that knee. Maybe lift the right leg up towards the ceiling. By the way, if your right leg doesn't straighten all the way, it's fine to have the knee bent. You're just trying to keep the hips balanced and even. Breathing here. And then exhale, go ahead and release. You can straighten the left leg if you want up towards the ceiling. Both hips nice and even and rooted. Shoulder blades on the back. Feel the breath moving through you here. And then exhale, go ahead and release. Take the block out from underneath the hips, lower the hips down, put the block over to the side. Hug the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking from side to side. Roll all the way over onto your side and onto your belly. Make a pillow for the head with your hands, gently rocking the hips a little bit side to side here. And then coming back into center with the hips. Root the hips down, stretch long through the legs, toes on the ground. Bring the hands to either side of the chest, underneath your biceps or underneath your elbows. Lifting up a little bit through the shoulders and the chest. Low ribs are on the ground right now. Act like you're going to drag your hands back, chest lengthens forward. And then if you want to, lifting up into a higher cobra by pressing the hands down, keep the shoulders rolling back. Keep your hips on the ground, keep extending back through the legs, but maybe lift up higher. Only lifting up as high as you can comfortably hold though for today. Breathing here. Nice full deep breaths. And then exhale, lower all the way back down. Rest your head on the hands. Gently rock your hips a little side to side. Coming back into center with the hips. Prop yourself up on your elbows, elbows underneath the shoulders. Pressing down through the forearms, pull the forearms back, pull the shoulders on the back here. And then as you're ready, cross the right arm over in front of you. Lean a bit to the right side, but keep your left knee on the ground. Bend the left knee. Left knee stays close to the right knee. And then maybe grab that foot and maybe lower the left hip back down. And again, if grabbing the foot is too much for you here, feel free to use a strap. I will say looping straps back behind you is a bit more challenging. It's kind of like doing a ring toss at first. So it may take a few tries to get good at just catching your foot with a strap. I'll show on the second side. Go ahead and release this. So if you are using a strap, you just grab the strap so it makes a ring. Cross the left arm over, leaning over to the left side. Right knee stays down, bend the knee, and you have to, again, kind of just ring toss that foot. And then you can lower that hip down and pull that leg in towards you, breathing here. Nice, full, deep breaths. And knees are relatively close to each other in this pose, and you're pulling the foot towards the ground. So this is called Ardha Bakasana, as opposed to the position we're going to do next, which is the Dhanurasana. And I just say that, go ahead, release, come to your belly, because there is a such thing as a Ardha Dhanurasana, half a bow pose, where you're kicking the leg away from you, back into your hand, instead of pulling the foot towards you, towards your hip. Breathe. Okay, come back to center here. In center here, prop yourself up on your elbows, pull the shoulders pulling back, open the knees as wide apart as your hips now, root down strongly through the hips so the low back doesn't contract, and then bending your knees here. Breathe. Nice full deep breaths. I'm going to cross in a variation. And then exhale, go ahead, release, gently rock the hips from side to side. You might want to rock the hips with the knees bent. Some people prefer that weight of the legs. And then coming back to center here, root down through the hips, bend your knees, arms along the sides, floating up through the shoulders and the chest. If the feet are close, you can grab the feet. You do not have to. And if the feet are far away, and again, if you get good at that ring toss thing, you can catch instead your ankles with a strap. Whatever you're doing, kick the feet back if you want to. If you're holding on to them with something, you can kick the feet back, lifting up through the chest, breathing here. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. exhale, go ahead and release. And gently rock the hips from side to side. Okay, come back to center. You can go ahead, bring the arms along the sides again. So round number 2, root down through the hips, lift up through the chest. Again, if you're grabbing the feet, you can grab the feet. If you can only grab one foot, we're going to do this one more time. So you can grab one foot on one side and the other foot on the other side. And do, so Ardha Dhanurasana is kicking the foot back into the hand. And that was I saying what we didn't do before. So you can do that if you want to on one side and then the other, if that works better for you. Breathing wherever you're at. And then exhale, go ahead, release, rest the head on the hands, gently rock the hips from side to side. And again, one more Dhanurasana. So bending your knees, maybe grabbing the ankles instead of the feet, kicking the legs back away from you. Breathing wherever you're at. Nice full deep breaths. Again, maybe just doing the left side. So maybe grabbing that left ankle and kicking that foot back. And then exhale, go ahead, release, rest your head on the hands. Gently rock the hips from side to side. As you're ready, making your way back into a child's pose. Nice, full, deep breaths. Okay. Virasana, and again, I like to always use a block because my body is not as flexible in this direction. But if you want to be on the floor or a blanket in between the legs, you can do that. If you need the block higher, go back to a higher height of the block, that's fine. And when you're ready, if you want to, again, you can lean back a little bit here. Breathe. Inhale, come back up. Go ahead, take your feet over to the left side. If you want to, bring that right leg forward. And if you want to, bring the right leg into a half lotus here. And we're just going to stay in center here and practice lowering the left butt cheek back towards the ground in this half lotus position. Breathe. And then go ahead, shift the weight into your right butt cheek, unwind, take this leg out, both feet over to the right side, sliding the left foot forward, right foot by the hip if that works for you. And then again, leaning, maybe bring this foot in half lotus. And if that doesn't work for you, you can keep the foot on the ground. And again, then maybe just working on lowering the right hip back towards the ground here. Breathe. And then go ahead, lean back over to the left side. Unwind, soles of the feet together, knees nice and wide apart. Again, feel super, super free to grab something for the sitting positions and to sit on it. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths here. And then from here, we're going to straighten the right leg forward out in front of us. Hug the left knee in towards the left armpit. Sit up nice and tall. Right hand comes to the right shin. Wiggle the left arm in front of the leg. You might have to twist to the right first to do that, but you're trying to bring the left arm in front of the leg. Maybe bringing this hand down. Maybe bringing the right hand down too. Marityasana variation. So a lot of times this pose is done with a bind. You can use a strap and bind if you want to. But really, for most people, this is more than enough. And in fact, if you get here and you're not here, this is pretty deep into the pose. Go ahead and come back up. Open the left knee to the left side. Janu Shirsasana. Knee and toe up to the sky, hands framing the right leg. Lift the low back out of the hips, untucking the hips. If you need to bend the right knee, so if your hips are tucking under, bend the right knee, untuck the hips. And then again, think of these hip points, and you're trying to tilt the hips. So these come a little bit closer to your legs, and your tailbone slides back. Then grabbing wherever comfortable to grab on the right leg, and we do have a strap, so it can be a really super good idea to use a strap. Lengthen the spine, and gently fold in. Breathe. And lifting the left knee up, straightening the left leg, right leg bends, hug the right knee in towards the right armpit, sitting up nice and tall, left hand on the shin, wiggle that right arm in front. And again, you might have to twist and then try to wiggle that right arm in front if that works for you. Both hands down. Also, make sure the right foot isn't right next to the left leg for this position. You can open that leg a little wider. In fact, this is basically working half of a squat on that right side. Breathe. And then go ahead and come back up. Open the right leg to the right side. Framing the left leg, untuck your hips, lift the low back out of the hips, bending your knee however much you need to do that. And then tilting the hips so the ridge bones of the hips come closer to the legs. The tailbone lengthens back behind you. Maybe using a strap, looping a strap around the foot. Inhale, lengthen the spine, and then exhale and gently fold. Janu Shirsasana, breathing here. And then go ahead and come back up. Both legs forward, knees and toes pointing up to the sky. Strap lassoed around both feet. Pull back on the legs again, untucking the hips, lifting the low back up out of the hips, and then tilting the hips so the tailbone goes back behind you. Rigid bones comes a little bit closer, and folding forward. Make sure that when you inhale that you increase the space between the vertebrae of your back a little bit. So that's one of the keys to forward folding, is just keeping space as much as comfortable in between the front and the back of the vertebrae of the back. And then inhale, come back up. Easing your way off the blanket or the pillow. Move it to the side, grab behind the back of the legs, sit up nice and tall, lean back. Legs float up, Navasana. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then if you want to, Ardha Navasana, nice full deep breaths. And then coming all the way down onto your belly. Hug the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. And just making sure the strap was someplace I could grab it. I need to do the same with the block. And then coming back into center here, lowering the feet to the ground. Straightening the left leg along the ground. Go ahead and grab the strap. Loop the right ball of foot into the strap, and you can straighten that leg along the ground too. Then keep rooting down through the left leg and the hips. Pull the right leg in towards you, hamstring stretch. This time take the strap into the left hand, looping the strap around the left hand, open the right arm to the right. Right shoulder can stay down, right hip can lift up, twisting, breathe. Nice full deep breaths. And then inhale, come back to center. Hugging that right leg in towards you through center. You can engage your core and lift your head and shoulders up here. If you want to try that Padangusthasana 3 variation again. So you give yourself enough strap with the right hand. And so think about grabbing your toe here to take the arm back around and across. Breathing here. Nice full deep breaths. And then go ahead and unwind, straightening that right leg, pulling the right leg in towards center, leveling out the hips, and then pressing the right leg into the strap, lower the right leg down. Slide the left foot into the strap, a right leg out, press down, rooting down through the hips and the legs. The right or left leg could pull in towards you here. And then taking both into the strap into the right hand, looping the strap around the right hand, left arm opens to the left, and if you want to, you can twist to the right side, breathing here. If your foot hits something like mine just did, sometimes it feels nice to just press your foot into a wall or whatever you landed on, trying to keep the left shoulder down. And then inhale, unwinding back to center. You might have to center your hips after the twist again. That's fine, do that. Hug the left leg in towards you. Lift the head and shoulders up. And again, if you want to do this 3 variation, giving yourself enough strap to take the arm back around the back of the head, breathing here. Nice full deep breath. And then exhale, go ahead and release. Go ahead and straightening that left leg. Pull it in towards center, breathing here. And then go ahead and lower that leg all the way down to the ground, putting the strap over to the side. Full body stretch, stretch the arms up above the head, legs along the ground, lengthen everything out. And then go ahead, bend the knees, soles of the feet to the ground. Grab your block, perhaps medium height. If you need to stay low, definitely stay low. Bring your hips to the block. Go ahead, arms along the sides, airplane position, palms facing up. Root down through the shoulders and the back of the head. Feel the breath flowing through you here. If you want to extend the legs straighter, you can extend the legs straighter. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. And then go ahead and bend the knees and bring the soles of the feet back to the ground, closer in. When you're ready, you can lift the right leg up high to the sky, breathing here. Feel the breath flowing through you here. And then exhale, lower the right leg back down. Inhale, the left leg lifts up to the sky, feeling the breath flowing through you here. And then if it works for you from here, go ahead, lift both legs up. A seal pose, a modification of shoulder stand. Breathe. And then when you're ready, go ahead and release. I'm going to give you another option. Lower the hips to the ground. So you could stay in that version with a block either low or medium height. If you want the block high height, I like to roll onto the block instead of pressing or lifting my hips up into it. So from here, I take the block into my hand, I roll, and then I set the block high height underneath my hips. And again, only if this feels good for you. You still have to wiggle the shoulders underneath you. I a lot of times like to clasp my hands here around the block because the block is skinnier here. Press the shoulders down and lengthen up here. Breathe. Nice, full, deep breaths. And just staying in a shoulder stand variation if that works for you. If full shoulder stand is a part of your practice, you could insert that here. If you'd rather do legs up the wall instead, you can come over to a wall and lift your legs up a wall. Have the legs resting against the wall. Maybe have a blanket underneath your hips to lift your hips up higher than the head to make it a little bit of a true inversion. Legs up the wall with the hips on the ground is not a true inversion, but if you put stuff underneath your hips to lift your hips up, it can become one. A little bit. The hips only have to be lifted up like an inch or two. Really not much at all. Okay, feel free to roll back down to come out of this. Or if you want to, if your thighs feel like they'll handle, if your back feels okay, you can come down into a supported bridge here. This is probably, honestly, a little bit too much for my hips in this position. I feel like my hips are being pulled a little bit here. But again, you can play with it and see what it feels like for you. And then you can come up to your tippy toes and wiggle the block out. I actually have a little bit of a toe thing going on today. So I'm going to actually come back up and roll back down. Okay. Once you are here, hands to the tops of the thighs. Press the thighs away from you. Nice full deep breath. A little bit of swaying from side to side. And then from here, moving into a more full expression of windshield wipers if you want to. So opening the feet as wide apart as your mat. Hands can be in T position or cactus. Exhale the knees over to the right side. Inhale up to center. Exhale the knees to the left side. Inhale up to center. Exhale to the right. Inhale to center. Exhale to the left. Inhale up to center. Exhale the knees to the right. Holding the knees on the right side. Stretching that left knee more towards the front of the room. So this is, again, really a thigh stretch as well as a gentle twist. And in fact, if your hips would take it, you could, from here, move that left foot closer to the hip and come more deeply into that thigh stretch that we've done many times already in this class. Breathing, go wherever you are at, whatever works for you. And then inhale up to center. Exhale the knees over to the left. Breathing here, stretching the right knee forward. And again, if you were to want to, you can come into that thigh stretch, that quad stretch a little bit more. Breathe. And then inhale, go ahead, unwind. Bring the soles of the feet together, the knees apart for a moment, Supta Baddha Konasana, gently rocking the hips from side to side here. And then just coming into center with your hips here, pressing the feet actively in towards each other. So an active Supta Baddha Konasana as you gently lengthen your tailbone a bit towards your feet. Again, not really tucking the tailbone under, but a little bit of a lengthening through the back of the pelvis. And then from here, you can hug the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking from side to side. Feel super, super free to stay here, or from here, opening the knees wider apart, lengthening through the spine, pulling the knees down toward the ground on either side of you. You can hold on to the knees, back of the knees, lower legs, or the feet. Or it can be really nice, actually, to use a strap and happy baby pose because it lets your feet root up into something more powerfully than your hands. So maybe take the strap to your feet with your knees nice and wide apart. Press the feet like you're standing on the ground into the strap and pull the strap down. Breathe. Unwinding into center here and coming into a full body stretch. Stretch the arms up above the head, legs along the ground, lengthen everything out. And then making your way into a Shavasana as you're ready, or whatever final resting position works for you. If you're doing Shavasana, legs are wider apart than the hips, tailbone is lengthening towards feet, arms by the sides, palms facing up, and relaxing here, fairly neutral. And moving away anything to the side that you need to. But again, if this doesn't work for you, any position that the back is neutral and relatively supported. So knees bent is usually the next position people try. You can do Supta Baddha Konasana if it's really relaxing for you. You can lie on your side, you can lie on your belly, but coming into a position that works for your body. And just let yourself relax here. I'm going to finish the tape that shows you how old I am. I'm going to finish the recording. You can continue to relax in Shavasana as long as you want to. Recommended time is 10-15 minutes. However long you want, just staying here. But I'm going to go ahead and finish the recording. When you are done, usually, traditionally, they tell you to roll onto the right side and pause, let the heart, the chest turn towards the ground. Focus the breath on the left nostril a bit. So if you enjoy that, really feel super free to do that. If that doesn't work for you, then you do not have to do anything that does not work for you in this particular moment. So you can roll to the left side, you can just come up, whatever works for you. Try to keep your eyes soft or closed though, and legs and hips heavy. And you just will eventually, after your 10-15 minutes, hopefully ease your way to a comfortable sitting position. And I'm just going to finish this session with a Om. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day.